Brewing Network.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the first ever Firestone Walker Invitational Beer Festival. It's good to see you all here. There's a lot of people here, and I just heard 10 of you. Hey, welcome to the Firestone Walker International Invitational Beer Festival. Yeah. We're really happy to have you all here. We're over at the Behind the Beer stage right at the entrance, and we're going to interview brewers for you all day so that you can get the lowdown on all the beer that you're drinking. Mostly we'll be talking to the 2,000 people in line for Dark Lord all day. Is what's going on. That's that snaking line that goes all the way from the booth to the bathroom. All right, my name's Justin Crosley, and I'm with the Brewing Network, and I'm the co-sponsor of this stage to interview the brewers, along with Melanie from Tap Hunter. Let's get all those microphones on. That'll help.
Hello.
There we go. Now, the Brewing Network is an online beer radio station, and we interview brewers all the time. So you can find us at thebrewingnetwork.com doing this every single week. And Tap Hunter, Melanie, tell us about that.
Thank you. I'm Melanie Gordon with Tap Hunter. We help you find great beer because life's too short to drink crap. So download our free app on your iPhone or Android.
Yes, and speaking of apps, you can actually vote for the People's Choice beer today. Don't vote now, because you'd be cheating. You haven't tried all the beer yet. But when you're ready, you can go to craftbeercrawl.com on your stupid phone, and you'll be able to vote for your favorite beer today. Craftbeercrawl.com, and vote for your People's Choice Award. And there's a grand prize.
Massive grand prize. Firestone Walker kicks ass, and they have a huge grand prize for next year. 4 tickets, hotel room, dinner, the whole works.
A fire pit,
Damn.
$100.
Who's paying for that?
You are, Matt.
Ooh.
Yeah, we borrowed Matt's ATM card, and we bought a really good grand prize. Everybody who votes at craftbeercrawl.com is entered to win. And we got a lot of other prizes to give away, too. Hats and shirts and glassware and all kinds of stuff. A date with Matt Brynildson. So it'll be good. Yeah, chicks and dudes. He doesn't care. It'll be a fun time. His wife will be along on the date also, but we'll be giving that away later today.
She's really cool, though.
All right, so up here on the stage with us right now, we've got, of course, the brewmaster of Firestone Walker, the guy who helped put all this together along with his amazing team, Matt Brynildson.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for coming.
And then right next to Matt and to my left here is Matt Trevisan, and he's with a local winery. I don't want to screw it up, Matt. Give us the name of the winery.
It's called Linne, Calodo. We're over on the west side.
Okay. So, as some of you probably know, every year Firestone does an amazing anniversary beer. And it's a blend of a lot of the barrel-aged beers and different beers that Matt has available at the brewery. But to do it, he enlists the help of local wineries because wineries are really the masters at blending. It's how we get the great wine that we do. And Matt thought, well, listen, if they're the ones who are really good at it, we should have them do our beer too. And Matt Trevisan is always involved in that. So I wanted to talk a little bit to you, Matt, about both Matts actually, about the blending process. So maybe, Brynildson, you could tell us how it even starts. I mean, what are the beers involved in the most recent anniversary, for example?
I may have told this story on radio before, but Firestone's always been a brewery, at least for the first years, that really concentrated on sessionable beers. We concentrated on pale ale, specifically English-style pale ale and American-style pale ale. So we had very few beers, and we tried our best to make those very well, and we were kind of fixated on pale ales for years. And it wasn't until our 10th anniversary that we started doing some experimental brews, and basically the owners came to me and said, hey, we'd like you to do something special for our 10th anniversary. Go ahead, do whatever you want. And I, after 10 years of not having the opportunity to brew these crazy beers, I kind of went a little crazy. I brewed a barley wine, I brewed a Russian Imperial Stout, and Imperial Brown Ale, and woke up one morning and realized I had a lot of beer and still didn't have something for the release. All these beers had been laid down in barrels, and I didn't know barrels very well. I didn't know flavors from barrels very well. So I called, Matt is a really good friend. His wines are insanely good. And just the talent and the knowledge that goes with barrel aging, being able to taste the flavors and work them together, it just seemed like a natural fit to bring the winemakers in.
Yeah, it's pretty spectacular to have all these different beers, and it's like a spice rack. So you you start off tasting the individual barrels and looking at the different flavors that each one has to offer. And it's just, you can go so many different directions. You can go towards hoppiness, you can go towards the stouts, brown ales, and it's really kind of figuring out what dimension we want to make the beer in. And we can, you know, are we looking for a sipping beer? Are we looking for a quenching beer? It's there's so many different places you can play with the beer and play with the barrels as it's aging.
In the early years, we would just let the guys do whatever they wanted, and it was kind of a little bit of chaos initially, and it always kind of worked itself out. And now we've gotten to the point where we have so many beers, so many things to choose from, and so many winemakers involved. We've had to start to try to manage this thing a little bit, and we turn it into a little bit of a competition where we put these guys in teams now. They create their dream blend, and we go back behind closed doors and reblend them and make them kind of rate the group in almost a GABF judging style format.
It's like a steel cage match.
And then they
Very
pick
intense.
the winning blend, and that's what we go with.
Right. I got to sit in on one of these tastings. Matt invited me down to the brewery, and I'm hanging out. And I thought maybe I could contribute to the blend. Let me taste them too. And I realized within like 5 minutes that I'm an idiot when it comes to tasting beers compared to these winemakers. They were able to. Matt kind of has this list of beers in front of him because it's whatever you have available at the brewery. And is there a rule that they have to use every single beer on the list?
No rules at all.
Okay. So they sat there, and within minutes, these winemakers, they're making great blends almost instantly. It seems so natural to you guys to be able to taste each one individually and go, oh yeah, 10% of this, 5% of that, 20% of that, and you were done.
Yeah, I think when you're blending, you try to create both all the way to the left side and all the way to the right side, and then you kind of sit back, you examine your glasses, and you see which one's empty. You look to see which one keeps bringing you back, and you taste it over and over again, and that always is the glass that is probably the one to blend for.
I love that rule. Go by the glass that's empty. That's the one that's really good in the beer.
You've seen that in beer judging before, too, where the judges are sitting there's one empty glass, and they're like, I need another pour of this.
I'm pretty sure that's the winner right there. So you guys have been doing this for years now, and the most recent, I have all of them on my shelf. I buy 2 bottles every year. I drink one instantly. I save one. So I've got a whole flight waiting for me. Tell us about the most recent beer.
Well, oftentimes Parabola ends up being kind of this anchor point in a lot of these. And this year we didn't have as much Parabola for one, and we had purposely made some blonder barley wines. We made Eldorado. We had a fair amount of Abacus and a few of these other things. So, almost by default, we were working towards something that was a little on the lighter side, color-wise. And that always scares me a little bit because I think a lot of people are looking for this big, dark, kind of gnarly barrel-aged beer, and so it's a little bit of risk-taking when we go the other direction. But it was really well received. We don't make enough of it that it sits on the shelf anywhere, but.
Yeah, I think it's important for that anniversary beer to be playful, to be constantly a moving target, and as palates change, as beer seasons change, it's great to be able to produce something a little different every year.
Well, and besides you guys, my question is, is there anyone else doing this right now? I've tasted it; it's spectacular. Are you kind of the pioneers right now?
Blending has always been a part of brewing when there's barrels involved, because you have all these almost like individual lots that need to come together at some point. So I don't think we're the only ones doing it. We're probably the only ones that are employing winemakers to do it. So that's our gift to this thing.
Yeah.
I remember the blending was a lot easier when we were doing still beers at the start, because it was easier to measure and figure out exactly what the numbers were. And now that we're slightly carbonated, it's a little bit trickier game.
So we pull these samples off barrels, and the beer comes off flat because it's been sitting for the better part of a year. There's no carbonation. We typically like to pull samples and carbonate it so that they're tasting what the finished beer is going to be like with carbonation in it, because it changes things so radically. But it makes it a little trickier. These guys there's foam all over the table. And after you're drinking high-proof beers for a couple hours, everyone starts getting a little sloppier.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that the assumption might be that beer people and wine people are separate. What did you guys feel like when you got the phone call from the local brewery to come help them make a beer?
Everyone's heard this, but it takes a lot of good beer to make good wine. So it's very, very true.
Has it helped your blending in the winery? Do you go back learning something new from blending beer?
Yeah, I mean, it's a completely different palate profile when you're blending beer. In the winery, you're dealing with fruit, and the acids are really high on it. And when you're blending beer, you're dealing with the whole different dimension of palate feel. And you can go so many different ways. You can make it very quenching. You can make it very much an after dinner drink. And with wine, it's somewhat the same. If you're making whites versus reds, and stylistically how you make your reds, you can make reds that are high in acid or reds that are low in acid, high pH, and it's just a game. You know, it's just a game. You can create so many different things.
And kind of the same question for you, Matt, because the anniversary beer is not the only beer that you do blends with. Have you learned a lot from being in the wine community here in terms of blending your beer?
Yeah, and it's funny because we just did the double DBA blend, but it's only it's a single brew that we're going to release as double DBA, and I almost naturally right away was like, God, I want to put something else in this thing. I want to blend it up. Kind of brings me back. But like I said, we do blending in all different forms. Abacus is a blend of barley wines. It's not just a single brew. And even when we're doing Parabola like this last year, we had 3 different vintages to work with, so we mixed up 3-year-old with some fresher stuff and tried to bring some complexity to the finished product that way as well.
All right, anybody have any questions for the brewers? Because we'll give you a microphone if you've got any questions of your own. We got a lot of brewers coming up today, too, so I'll let these guys go soon. But if you got anything you want to ask, yeah, come on up here. Grab that microphone right there, and we'll do this. We got Alpine Brewery coming up next, who I've never interviewed before, but I've drank a lot of Duet in my time.
It's yummy.
It's a great IPA. Go ahead.
I just had a general question is what part does water play in the brewing process as far as giving you uniformity, and does that have to be all filtered out, and how do you keep the consistency of that? That has to be a very important part of the whole process.
Yeah, obviously, historically, breweries grew up around good water sources, and where there wasn't good water, the beer was not made. And with modern technology, water filtration, softening, reverse osmosis, it's afforded a brewery, really can be anywhere there's a plentiful water source. And here in Paso Robles, we have good water, and we have plenty of water, but we've got a lot of hardness, and calcium hardness can screw the brewer up in many ways. It makes kind of a chalky mouth character balance. So we at Firestone here in Paso Robles, we're going through water softening. We go through activated carbon to take chlorine and fluoride and anything else that's been added and any kind of aromas or anything like that. And then ultimately we go through reverse osmosis. So we're literally stripping that water down to practically H2O. And then we can bring it into the brewery and add back brewing salts like gypsum, calcium chloride, zinc if need be, or other yeast nutrients. And we actually can replicate the water of any source in the world. So if I'm brewing Pilsner beer, I can make soft water like it is in Pilsen, or if I'm making English ales, I can mimic the water of Burton-on-Trent. So it's made it a little easier for a brewer. But yeah, historically, that was a real key element to it all, obviously.
That's a great question. And also, in some cases, a brewer can do everything right with a recipe and how they brew. And if they don't yet know how to adjust the water, it doesn't matter. That beer's not going to come out like they intended it to do. So it's probably the most important.
Yeah, in a lot of small brew pubs or even home brewing, if you don't have a clean source or a really good, reverse osmosis equipment, you don't have that, I always suggest pre-boiling water. And if nothing else, it'll drive temporary hardness out bicarbonate, and it'll also drive chlorine off.
Any other questions for the guys while we got them here? I messed up. It's not Alpine next. It's Nebraska Brewing Company is going to be with us, who is an amazing up-and-coming brewery. They've been around for a couple years now and just making great beer. Go ahead.
How far back are you trying to control your source of ingredients, meaning for quality control, consistency, those sorts of things? Are you...
I mean, we're really blessed in the U.S. craft industry to have so many good suppliers, and there's a lot of really high-quality materials out there. And because craft brewing is growing so quickly, they're moving through the system very rapidly as well. The larger the brewery gets, the closer to the farmers we get, because we're now, we're talking about millions of pounds of malted barley, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands of pounds of hops, and so it's real, and we need to go out there and not just source the quantity that we need. For instance, Union Jack is a hop hog. I mean, it's over 4 pounds per barrel, and that thing's growing out of its pants every year. So I'm out dealing with farmers directly, not only to just get the volume and communicate what needs to go into the ground, and that's more like a winemaker is starting to get for us, where we're really starting to dial in on what works good for Firestone beers and communicate directly with the farmers, not only what the quality level we need, but just that sheer volume of hops that needs to go. Yeah, I'm feeling like I'm getting closer to the earth like Matt does when he's making his wine.
Yeah, I mean, in winemaking, it's all vertically integrated. It's just you get out there and you find a good piece of soil and plant your grapes, and that's where the wine's made.
And brewers have, unfortunately, over time become more separated from that activity, but it's so key to making good beer. And so we formed a new group amongst a few of the breweries that are here, actually, what we call the Hop Quality Group. And it's 12 craft breweries of like mind that are formed a non-for-profit, collect some funds, and it's all about commuting directly with farmers to tell them craft breweries' quality needs and make sure that they understand what it is that we want, and not just let the big brewers of the world dictate how hops should be grown.
There's a brewery here who's very in touch with his feelings and with the earth. Moonlight Brewing Company is here, and he has his own hop field that he brews with. He also uses local ingredients like spruce tips and things like that in his beer. So a good guy to talk to, and he's just down there. Matt invited Moonlight out here, and he's like, Matt kind of saying the separation between the brewer and the ingredients. Brian likes to stay as connected as possible. So go check out Moonlight over there. Any other questions?
I'm Rob Williams. Question on how closely you're working with hop growers around developing experimental hops and how much you're kind of dictating that process for your own use.
The process of taking some new genetic material and bringing it all the way to the finish line as far as making a hop that's ready for use for the brewer is almost a 10-year process. And historically, craft breweries have not played a huge part in that, and then suddenly now there's been a shift when InBev bought out Budweiser, and Budweiser eliminated aroma hops from all of their brewing programs. They used to be the largest aroma hop purchaser in the world. They were buying all the Willamettes that were grown here in the United States, and overnight they just stopped and went to extract. There was a huge shift, and suddenly farmers are looking to craft brewers and asking, what are your aroma needs? And we're starting to play a bigger part in that, and that's very recent. And that's as simple as going to the test plots and rubbing hop samples at harvest and just giving a thumbs up or thumbs down to these growers and guiding them towards what they should use relative to new cultivars. Unfortunately, the breeding program went from a public breeding program now more into the private sector, and it's more common now for farmers not to share too much information until they have something ready for trade. They trademark it like Amarillo or Simcoe and try to hold that genetic material to a single farm. It's a little problematic then to communicate directly to an individual farmer what you want. Hopefully the public breeding program will take off again and we'll have a little more say as a group in new cultivars.
Hey, Matt, being in wine country here, have you or is there a way to use grapes in your beer? Have you done anything like that?
I mean, legally, I think we need to have at least 50% malt, and then we can use them just like making any other kind of fruited beer. I personally haven't done it, but we need to do it, don't we, Matt?
Yeah, we're ready. I'm ready.
There's another winemaker in town, Neil Collins, who's the winemaker at Tablas Creek, and he has his own label called Lone Madrone, and he makes cider on the side. This guy's a busy guy, and he recently made a dry hopped cider that was outstanding.
Sounds good. All right, any other questions for the guys? Yeah, come on up.
When is the optimum time to drink a beer? A week after it's made? A month? Does it depend on what variety it is, or what?
That's a great question, and you could talk endlessly about that. So it's pretty specific to the type of beer you're making, and for 90% of the beers that Firestone produce, pale ales, IPAs, beers of this nature, the day they come off the bottle line is the best day to consume them, and it's slowly fading over time relative to oxidation reactions and just relative to fresh flavor. And so 9 times out of 10, the fresher the beer, the better. And that starts to change when you start talking about barrel-aged beers and sour beers and things of that nature. So, you know, there's almost two classes of beer, and sometimes it's confusing for the consumer because they're told on one hand to lay beers down and create these beer cellars, and then on the other hand, you know, best before dating and drinking beer as fresh as possible. So,
I think it should start to become a standard that brewers label their beers accordingly. Cantillon, which sour beers, they put on the label, this beer can be stored for 20 years, I think it says. It's like a really long shelf life. But they tell you at least, so you don't have to guess at it. And you guys put ABV on there, and sometimes you talk a little bit about the beer. I think it'd be awesome if it was kind of a standard that the brewer recommended how long to hang on to that beer.
Yeah, I agree. I think when a lot of the changes in EU legislation in Europe has forced brewers to put a both packaged on and best before date. And if something like that happened in the United States, I think it would be a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, anybody else got questions before I let these guys go? All right, we got some prizes to give away. Everybody who asked a question, stick around. I got some Firestone swag to give you. Yeah, we'll give you hats and T-shirts and all sorts of stuff. Matt, thanks for putting on a great festival.
Yeah, and if I can just say, I mean, the dream, this festival, the dream of ours was to bring our favorite brewers together, brewers of like mind, create an environment that's fun and relaxing for them because it's summertime, we're working hard. But I think more importantly, it's leave the marketing materials at home, leave the full press thing out as far as trying to promote yourself and just come here. The brewers are pouring their own beers. You can meet the brewer who made the beer, taste their best beers. And I mean, this is a collage of our favorite people in the industry. And I'm honored and humbled to have some of the best brewers in the world show up here today in Paso Robles.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what you get when you're Matt Brynildson and you invite people to a brew fest. They're like, oh yeah, I'll be there. When? Tomorrow?
I
Sure.
sent the email out and I picked everybody that my dream team list, thinking I might get one or two of them. And within 5 minutes of sending the email, Nick Floyd called and said, "Dude, I'm there. Get me a hotel. I'm not sleeping on the ground."
F your camping situation. Give me a hotel.
So all the fans remember, People's Choice is today. You can vote at craftbeercrawl.com. So vote for your favorite brewery today. There's going to be a fun People's Choice Award given away later today.
Yeah. And while you're in the area, you can go see Matt Trevisan at Linne Calodo. Did I not screw it up?
That is perfect.
Yeah, you can go check out the wine there. I know there's a wine tour happening tomorrow, I think, for some of the brewers. So go check out the local wine, too. And thanks again, guys, for being here. Thanks to all of you. If you asked a question, come up to the stage. We got some swag to give you. Coming up in just a few minutes, we have Tyson Arp from Nebraska Brewing Company. And we're going to try to bring over the beer that of the people we're interviewing so you can sit there and we'll pour it for you for free.